So tá com um atraso grande, né? Você viu? Apareceu agora só. Deve estar com um atraso de uns 10 segundos. Hello everybody, how have you been? Hello, is everyone, can everyone listen to me? Hello, good morning everyone. Just check everything if everything is okay. Let's see here. Okay, the camera is not shaking too much. Okay, so welcome everyone to my channel, to my live video. Today I'm going to show you how to shape origami, complex origamis, and to do it, let me show you. I prepared some papers here. So the first thing, I want to show these two origamis first. This one and this one here. Let me just open here. Okay. So I want to show both of them is the Darkness Dragon 3.2 and one of them is made with a kami paper with 25 centimeters, and this one is made with Wenzhou paper. It's the Chinese rice paper with CMC and with black dye. Right? And a lot of people always ask me why their origami looks like this one and they can't shape the origami very well. See, this one here, it looks okay, right? But the difference is too big if we compare with this one. So first thing, I'm going to show you about the paper. First thing first, you have to use a big paper in order to make all the details on the origami. And if you have any doubts or any question, you can just post on the chat. Hello, Marie Spots. And let me see here. Yes, I am back. I've been away from YouTube for like 4 years, about 4 years, yeah. And then about a month ago, I came back to YouTube. And yeah, the legs on the Darkness Dragon, I decided to make a little bit different than before. So with longer claws and with 4 claws instead of 3. Longer legs and everything, right? But as you can see here, I cannot make all the details in this paper because it's too small. Thank you, Pedro. And let me see here. When you choose the paper, I want to show one thing. Here I have several stripes of paper, right? So this one here is the Taiyunryu. Okay, this one is the washi paper, and this one, let me see here. No, this one is the washi paper. This one is the Wenzhou paper, and this one is the A4 printer paper, right? When you choose a paper, a lot of people ask me where I can buy good papers, and it's really hard to answer this question because it depends on where you are. So here in Brazil, I mean, if you live in Japan, you can find washi paper and unryu paper kind of easily. But maybe the Chinese rice paper is the easiest to find, because I could find quite easily here in Brazil. And of course the printer paper is not good for origami, and I will show how you can see if the paper is good or not. So first thing, the paper must be thin and resistant, and one thing that makes a big difference in the paper is how long are the fibers. I don't know if you can see here. Dá para dar zoom bem grande aqui. Okay, so if you tear the paper, you can see the Taiyunryu has long fibers, right? I'm not sure if you can see here, but right, it has long fibers, long and resistant fibers. The same for washi paper, right? You can see the fibers. Oh, it's so small. I'm not sure if you can see it very well. An assistant, Aline, o Marcos aí. And let me see here. And here is the rice paper. It's the same thing, right? It is very resistant. If you tear the paper, you can see the fibers. Now, if you do the same thing on the A4 printer paper, you can't see any fiber. So the fibers are very short, and the paper is basically glued together, right? So that's why this paper is not good. But even when you use this paper, you must use CMC glue. Tissue paper, well, tissue paper, it has a little bit longer fibers, but even then you have to prepare the paper with CMC, and CMC is basically the glue they use on this paper and on A4 printer paper. It's called CMC glue, or it's the same glue used in wallpapers, and you just apply some of the glue in this paper. So the paper is going to be a little bit more, it will hold the shape a little bit better, okay? And this one doesn't have CMC, so if I fold, you can see that it returns a little bit. See, even if I fold, it returns a little bit. It has a little bit of tension here, right? And it's basically it about the paper. So even if you can't find washi paper or paper specifically for... Peraí, deixa eu tirar. My cat is here. Okay, so even if you can't find this same paper, this exact paper, you can find similar papers. Okay, the CMC, I usually use a brush, but I've seen people using that painting roll. It looks like it works really well. Oh, thank you, Dolan. And let me see here. Another thing that is important, and this I think it's one of the tricks that no one shows, but I use a lot, is, well, we all know about wet folding, right? When you apply some water to the paper, so it's easier to give the shape to the paper. But you won't wet fold all the time. And let me give you one example. The problem with the folds, okay, so I folded here like a spring, right? And as you can see, even if I press the paper strongly here, even if I press the paper, it returns. And that's the problem when you try to shape an origami. You try to fold, you try to do everything, but the paper doesn't stay in the shape you want. And in this case, you can just do something like this. You take one paper, one paper stripe, like this one. You roll the part where you want to hold the shape. Right? And after you roll the paper, let me see here. You do something like this, right? Then you apply just a drop of water here where there's tension on the paper, right? On both sides, in this case, you just apply a drop of water here and here and let it dry. Let it dry. And if you do this, let me see, okay. So I did this to this paper yesterday, and now it is dry. It is already dry. So let's unroll this just to check how it looks like right now. And here you can see that the paper is not glued, okay, but as the paper gets dry, it holds the shape way better than if you just fold. See? And as you can see, it's not glued here. Right? So why this happens? And as I showed before, the paper has a lot of fibers, right? And when you apply some paper, you just lose the fibers. And when it gets dry, the fibers get stuck together again. And by doing this, you remove the tension from these parts here, from the folds. And by doing this, you can make the paper stay in the shape you want. Kabutomushi in the back? No, it's not. It's a scorpion. Okay, so this is the first tip. That if you use this, you will see that the paper, the origami will hold the shape. You will be able to shape the origami way better. And this, in a paper with CMC, it works even better because the CMC will dilute on the water, and then it will glue again the paper. I paint the paper on the color I want. So I use some dyes. Let me see here. So I am using this to dye the paper. I'm not sure if this is the best one. I just use this one from Sherwin-Williams, and it works really well. Okay. Now that I pulled, it's going to unfold a little bit. See, so now I added some tension again, so it's not going to be folded, right? And you can use this technique. Let me give you one example. When I make the legs for a dragon, for example, you have this, right? And the paper, it gets really hard to fold the paper, conform the paper in the way you want. So you start to make folds like this, but then the claws will start to separate from each other, and all those things that everyone who makes complex origamis knows that the shaping part gets really hard sometimes, right? Because the legs doesn't stay in the shape you want. And here on this dragon, you can see that the shape, the origami is maintaining the shape I want. Even the legs, when you make this kind of folds, it gets really hard to make the paper stay in the correct shape, right? I use an Indian kite paper, very little fibers. Well, if it has little fibers, there's one thing you can do. If you can't find paper with longer fibers, you can also apply some acrylic paint. So it will give a little bit of a rubbery texture to it, but it's going to be way more resistant. Okay, so yeah, the claws is very different now, right? And here, one example of what I do in this case is I just use something to hold the paper, right? In this case, it's not good to just hold like this because it will leave marks. So you can use anything to make it get flat. So let me see. I have this. I use this. I'm not using these chips. So I just use these things like this, right? And then apply some water here in the middle and let it dry, let it get dry. And then here it's the same thing. The paper is too loose, so you just roll the paper, hold the paper in the shape you want, apply some water, and then let it get dry. And another thing I do sometimes is just like in this one, I place a small aluminum wire here, see? So it can even hold the angles right, see? So this one I prepared yesterday, applied some water, now it's dry. E aí, Pietro? Não tá conseguindo ouvir não, mas depois vai ficar gravado aqui. Okay, do you use any shaping tools? Usually I use just some tweezers, so I can fold small places and fold the details. Now let's see here. This one probably is already dry because I applied water yesterday. Let's see here. How do I apply the water? I apply with my hand, just put a drop of water on my finger and place where I want to make the paper lose tension, and that's all. There's no secret, no big secret. And as you can see here, I didn't use any sort of glue, anything. I just used some water on the paper, and even the angles here are held in shape, right? See the curve here is also held in shape. So this technique is really good. So if you do this, as you can see, the paper here is going to be a little bit more stiff. So it's going to be easier for you to make the claws later. So now I can just fold it like this. See? Tá meio desfocado, né? If I do the same thing here. Yes, it is. It's somehow the technique you use in wet folding. In wet folding, you just apply some water on the whole paper, so it's easier to shape it, and when it gets dry, it gets really rigid, right? So instead of applying water I make in wet folding, I just hold the paper in the position I want, and then just apply some water, and when it gets dry, it will hold the shape really well. And that's something I use in almost every origami. I've never made a video showing this technique, but I use this a lot. And you'll see that your origami will be way better if you do something like this. Yes, you can use this method. It's going to be way better. And it's not cheating. You're not using glue, you're not using anything, just the paper, and you just make the paper lose the tension on the folds. And it's really good. And if you see here, as you can see, vai tirar o zoom pouquinho aqui. As you can see here, I use this technique here on this origami. I use it on the tail. I just folded the tail and then rolled a paper on everything here on the tail and applied some water. That's why it holds this shape without losing the shape after some time. And also here in the middle of the origami, sometimes you get something like this. The paper gets open in the middle, right? So there are some lock folds you can do, but even with the lock folds, sometimes the middle part gets a little bit open, because, well, the Darkness Dragon, it has some lock folds, so it holds the shape in this position here and this position here. But even then, it's nice to take the paper, take the origami, roll the paper on everything, and this middle part is very important, because the middle part is one of the parts with most tension on the paper. So let me see here if I have another origami. Okay, this one is the pocket dragon, right? It has the same problem. Even if you make a lock fold here, you have a lock fold here, but even then the paper gets a little bit open. So you can just use, I think I have, okay, I got it here. You know, a piece of wood you put here in the middle, and then you take paper stripe, roll on everything, and it works with any paper. You don't need any special paper. It works better if you use CMC glue before on the paper, but you can do it even without CMC. Okay, you roll everything, and then just apply some water here and wait it to get dry. So I did this. Okay, I did this on this one, on this origami, but it didn't hold the shape very well, but I can just do it again, right? Or use more CMC. See, this technique here is something that you all should learn in order to make complex origami looks way better. I think there are more people that uses something similar to this. If I am not wrong, I think Obelisk, the one who makes the human figures a lot, he used this technique. And I think, I don't know why, I've never seen any origami artist show these techniques or make a video showing this kind of technique, but this technique is very good. It's important to do this. Okay. Yeah, you can try it. It's really easy. So you just have to keep this in mind. The important thing about this is that you will make the paper lose some tension. And if you're going to make the paper lose tension, it must be on the important parts, right? Where you see that the paper is not conforming, the paper is not holding the shape. That's why places like this that has a lot of paper together and it makes a spring are the best places to apply this technique. E aí, Henrique, beleza? Oh, where did you put the wood piece? Okay, it's here. The wood piece is here in the middle. It's just so if you don't use something here, it's going to get too flat. You know, the origami is going to look like this. So if you don't want to make the origami look flat, you just use something. Sometimes I use wires, aluminum wires, and try not to use wires with, try to use aluminum wires so you don't get rust and stain on the paper. aluminum wires, if you clean it very well, it's not going to stain the paper. Dwarf by Eric Joyzel, I've never folded it. I don't know if I can fold it, but the problem is that I can't, how can I say it? I don't know even who I should ask for authorization to make Eric Joyzel's origamis. I've never folded it, so I don't even know if I can fold it. I saw Eric Joyce's origami once, and it's mostly tessellation, and then you just conform the paper. You just make the form of the paper using wires. So I'm not really a fan of this kind of origami, you know. But the dwarf, I don't remember the dwarf right now. If you use thinner, okay, what happens if you use thinner paper like double tissue? Well, it's the same thing. The idea is always the same. You just have to apply water. The fibers are the same thing. You just make the fibers get loose, and then it gets dry, so it gets strong again. Yes, I still can design. The first design I made after I stopped making origami for 4 years is this one. Você pode trazer para mim? And I was also not sure if I could create origamis after so much time. And the first origami I created, the first origami I created was this one here. Pera aí que tá com a outra câmera na frente. Okay, so this origami here. And after I designed this origami, I was sure that I still could create origamis. And here in this origami is also good to see that the technique I said, because you know, to make the paper hold this shape here, right? You know, the legs, I used the same technique. So you can see here it doesn't have anything, any wire or anything, but to make it hold the shape, especially because this paper here is a very soft paper. So soft papers are really bad to make it hold the shape. I placed a wire inside the leg, rolled the paper, applied some water, let it get dry, and it held. Now it holds the shape the way I want. The head is the same thing. I applied some paper here on everything, applied some water. Okay, let me remove this. Yes, skateboarding fairy. Okay, let me see here the comments again. I used it to watch you when I was 12. Yeah. And it's been 4 years. Let me see here. Using tissue foil to shape. Tissue foil to shape is better. Now, okay, using tissue foil to shape better is considered cheating. No, it's not. It's just a type of paper, you know. I don't like tissue foil that much because, well, I mean, it depends on the paper and it depends on the origami, but tissue foil, it gives wrinkles to the paper, so I don't like it that much. I prefer to use this kind of paper, and then you shape using water, and then if you do this, you get a paper with less wrinkles and you can make it hold the shape you want. This samurai by Boyce, no, I have not folded it. It's so complex. I need some time to do it. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about creating origamis, right? So I created this origami here, the origami fairy, and the origami darkness dragon are both complex origamis I created in the last month. The darkness dragon 3.2. And I want to show a little bit more about how I come up with this kinds of origami. E aí, Marcos? Valeu, Maruba. Eu não sei o que é esse símbolo P. Mas valeu mesmo. Okay, let me see here. That's a lot of money. I don't know what is this symbol. My cat? Yeah, that's why I made this protection for my origamis. I have to place the origami inside these boxes so my cat doesn't destroy it. Tá quase finalizando? Amanhã você consegue mostrar? Eu ia levar um desses pra você amanhã. Deixa eu ver. Cadê o pequenininho? Será que eu deixei por aqui? Deixei pra lá, né? Tá aqui? Ah, achei. So here, another darkness dragon, a small one. Philippine peso. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, now let me open here the program. I use it to create the darkness dragon. Can you design Atlas Beetle? Well, I can try to design, but the problem is that there are so many origamis in the list of origamis I want to create that it's hard to keep with all the requests. Yeah, it is a little bit out of frame because I wanted to show another program right now. Let's see here. I am using here a CAD program. Is it how you say it? Like AutoCAD. Okay. So, deixa eu ver só uma mensagem aqui. Yes, a computer program. Okay. So I'm using a program similar to AutoCAD, because you don't need to use this program. You can use any program like Illustrator or GIMP or anything, or even a paper. I like it. I like to use this program because I am used to it. Okay. This is the crease pattern. Computer aided design. Oh, okay. And let me see, are you using a DSLR or GoPro? DSLR. So, the thing is, when I design a dragon, for example, I have to make the paper distribution, right? So this is the paper, and I have to make the distribution on the paper. And to do it, before I start, I just try to see how the lines are going to be. So for example here, if I have a leg, I will have 3 claws here, or 4. In this case I made 4 claws, right? And another leg will be in the same place, right? It will start on the same place and then make 4 legs. And then you have a small space between them, or you can even make it close to each other. But anyway, you have another 2 legs here. I won't make the claws, but you have the legs, and then the tail, then the neck, and the face. The face is going to be a little bit harder, okay? But I made 2 horns, and here I made the mouth. And then the wings. The only thing I made a little bit different here is that instead of making all separated like this, I made it close to each other. So I know it doesn't look like a dragon, and then here I made the wing, right? It doesn't look like a dragon, but it's important to make something like this to see the name of what? Repeat the name of the program. And okay, so it looks like a stick figure, but if you do this, you can see a little bit better of how you need to distribute the paper. Okay, so everything will get here in the middle. It starts here in the middle, right? And you have to see now why I'm doing this. I want to show you the circle packings. I mean, how do I transport this idea to the paper? And here I didn't make it proportionally, so it's going to look a little bit weird right now, but let me just make it a little bit smaller. No, okay. So from each tip here, you will need a circle of paper, right? So you need a circle of paper because if you want a tip, to make this tip, all the paper around it must be dedicated for this tip. Okay, the idea is very simple. I already showed a few times, but if you have a paper and you want to make a tip starting here in the middle, you need to fold the paper several times starting on this tip, and the amount of paper you must dedicate for it is a circle. In this case it's a rectangle, but the paper needed is a circle. Okay, so that's why we make a circle. Okay, the triangle of the wing is actually a triangle, right? So in the case of the wing, I made a triangle because it's not a tip. I mean, I will need a circle from this point, right? So I can distance the tip of the paper. Let me see if I can show on the other camera. Okay, so I need this distance here, right? This distance is the circle I just made. But then, as you can see, it's not a tip. You just have this long part on the wing. So I need another distance here, and another distance here. That's why it's a triangle, because I made this distance, and the distance from the tip of the wing to this point here. Okay? Now looks better than the ancient dragon. I'm not sure about it, but thank you. Okay, and there are some programs to use to convert all these lines into a crease pattern, but I don't use it that much. But anyway, let's show the circles I made here on the crease pattern. So each claw here is a circle, okay? And all the claws starts in the same point. It means that on the paper you will have something like this. So if you have a circle here to make one claw, the next circle will be close to the first circle. So I can do something like this. I will have 3 claws, or if I do something like this, I will also have 3 claws close to each other. Okay. In this case, in my case, I use it 4 claws, right? And it's on this point here. And as you can see, for each claw, you have this point where there are a lot of lines going out from the middle point, the tip here, right? And then I also have, okay, let me see here. It looks pretty close to the ancient dragon, just missing some horns. Yes, it looks similar, but the difference is that I made small fangs on this new version. And if you see the crease pattern is different here. The base I used here is completely different. Okay. So here I have the horns. And here I dedicated a small part to make the face, okay? And here I dedicated a small part to make the mouth. So you always have to think about this paper distribution. Okay, so here is where you start the wing. And then I have that triangle I draw here. So this is the triangle I dedicated to make the wing. And I know it's really hard to understand if I just show the ideas fast like this, but I want to pass this idea that you have to dedicate some part. Okay, I missed it. This circle here is wrong. This circle starts, it ends here. Okay, because here I have another circle to make the leg. Okay, so the leg will be this part. And okay, oh, my camera froze. Okay, let me see here what happened. A minha câmera travou aqui, deixa eu ver. Não, essa daqui. Deixa eu... Por que será? Ué, não tá carregando. Ah, já entendi já. Okay, it's back. Is it back? Yeah, I think it is. I hope it is. Okay, so why you're using a circle instead of a rectangle, square? Okay, the circle is the in theory, this is the part I need to dedicate, right? But in practice, if you make a box splitting, you will use squares, but the paper needed in theory is just a circle. Okay, different techniques will use different shapes, but in the end, the theoretical needed part is a circle. And there are videos from origamis, from the plant psychologist that shows a little bit of this, the idea of making the circles. But I'm going to show here just the idea I use it for the darkness dragon. Okay, so let me show again. This circle here, okay, it's the circle for the leg. And as you can see here, the leg, because I have the claws here, making these parallel lines, the leg will start on this point and end on the last claw here. So the dedicated paper for the leg will not be a circle, will have this shape here. This shape here. Okay? And when I make this shape, when you have straight lines like this, it means that instead of having several lines come from the same point, like this point, okay? So when you have a circle, you have several lines coming out of a single point, like this one and this one, right? When you have a straight line, you have parallel lines coming out from the sides of the paper. So you have these parallel lines. And these lines are made. So let me show you in practice. It's going to be easier to understand. And this is just a theoretical part, but I will show another thing that you need to learn in order to create an origami. Let's see here. Okay, the idea is quite simple actually. Because for example, in practice it's easier to understand what's going on, but if I want to make claws, I would have this, right? Paper. Okay, so briefly speaking, it's going to look something close to this. Okay, and then I just narrow here the paper so I can make the claws. But the idea is quite simple. Here you have the circle, okay, to make the claws. I made a circle starting from this point, and then I dedicate all this paper. As you can see, if I fold here like this, I can't use this paper for anything else. So I must use this paper, this part of the paper, just to make the leg. Okay, that's why I make a circle, because I won't use any of this paper on anything else. And as you can see, I just make some, lots of folds starting from the same point, and that's why you get a circle here. Okay, so let me make this fold here so you can see the circle better. Okay. Ok, here. A luz está atrapalhando pouco. Okay, here you can see the circle, right? And then the parallel folds is just because instead of making a circle, I decided to add more paper here in the middle so I can make the claws. So if you open here, you can see several parallel folds. I just added these parallel folds to the circle. Okay, so the circle starts here, and then you have a straight line, and then another the end of the circle. If you open the paper, you can see it even better. Here you have half of a circle, and then the parallel lines, and the other half here. Okay, so this you have to have this idea when creating an origami. You always have to dedicate paper for each part of the origami, and this is it's essential for you to do this if you want to create a complex origami. So let me open the program again. And if you look at the program, that's what I did. I made first one half of the circle, the other half, and then several parallel folds so I can make 4 claws. Okay. And well, basically it's the same thing I did here. And for the tail, it's the same thing. I just dedicated this part of the paper. And a lot of people also ask why I use this structure. I mean, this structure is the same for the ancient dragon. It's the same for well, probably his wife. Oh, the ring? Yeah, it's from my wife. Yeah, sure. Let me see here. Why we use this structure? The ancient dragon has this structure The darkness dragon has this structure. The pocket dragon also has this structure. It's always the same structure. And why is that? And if you think about it, if I want to make, let me just make a rectangle here, actually a square. So if I want to dedicate parts of the paper for each part of the origami, yes, the Western Dragon also used the same structure, and it's actually, it has a reason. It's not that everyone is copying each other, but if another person tried to create an origami with this same shape, probably it will get the same paper distribution, because it's kind of obvious that we are going to make the wings on the side of the paper, okay, on the corner of the paper, because it's easier, you know. So if you try to make a wing, if you try to make the wing from the middle of the paper, it's going to be really hard, because you have to dedicate the double amount of paper for it, you know, because you have to fold the paper and make the middle of the paper go to the side, so it's not really easy to do it. And if you have both wings on the sides, it gets quite obvious that it's better to make the face here on the front of the paper on one corner and the tail on the other corner. Again, it's way easier to make a tail using the side, using the corner of the paper, because you just fold like this, narrow the paper, and then you have the tail, right? It's easy to do something like this. And then if you want to make 4 legs, you need 4 small circles here in the middle. How you're going to distribute 4 circles? Let me just make these other circles the same size. So if you already use it all, this part of the paper, how you're going to make 4 small circles in the middle. So you need to make 4 small circles in the middle for the legs, and if you look at it, it's obviously the best way to do it is like this. Okay? So this distribution is the obvious distribution to make the origami, and this is what everyone uses. I'm using software similar to AutoCAD. Okay, if I don't have a glass surface to treat the paper with glue, it's not exactly a glue, right? It's CMC glue. Is kind of a glue, but it's not exactly a glue. It's the same glue you use it for wallpapers, so it's a weak glue, and you can use this actually, cutting mat. You know, this green. I don't know if you can see it, but you can use that green cutting mat, and it works just fine. Konbanwa, Kamua-san. Kamua? I don't know how to read the first the kanji part. I'm not really good at reading Japanese. And yeah, the diagonal is the best position for any dragon for this reason. Of course, you can use the paper in another positions, but okay, this paper distribution is the same I use here. Okay, so I just use this part for the wing, this part for the other wing, and this part for the head. Okay. And then you have 4 remaining parts to make the legs, and everyone will use this. It's the obvious distribution. Okay, the best way is to leave no space between the circles. You can leave a lot of spaces between the circles, but you have to have in mind that every blank space, every space you don't use, you have to hide in the middle of the model. So if you have a lot of white space, a lot of space that you don't use, you have more paper, and the model will get more clumped together. And sometimes it's just inevitable. You have to leave some space between the circles. And if you look at the Ryujin, the Origami Ryujin by Kamiya Satoshi, you see that more than half of the model is not used. So he has to hide all the paper inside all those on let me see. The Ryujin is like a shell. Okay, you're using just a shell, and all the unused paper is hidden in the middle. Hello, Mindy. Yes, I'm well. I'm actually happy to be back here on YouTube. Okay. And if circles overlap, the circles cannot overlap. Okay. Here, I just didn't draw the circles correctly, but they don't overlap. If you overlap the circles, it means that you don't have enough paper to make each part. So here I just didn't draw the circles correctly. That's why they did overlap, but they don't. Because the wing here is actually not a circle, okay? Because as I said before, it's a kind of a triangle that I made. Here, here, and here. This part is a little bit hard to explain exactly how to do it. How to figure how to make the lines for the wings. It's a little bit harder to explain. And another thing, okay, the next thing I want to explain is how to make the head, because, okay, I did dedicate some paper to make these parts here, but I didn't explain what is this, right? So to make this, I didn't make small several circles or anything like that. Okay, if you look at the crease pattern, this part here is going to be the fang. Here, 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 and here are the 4 fangs of the Darkness Dragon, but I didn't make circle packings for this. And this is the other part I wanted to explain. For this part, actually, when I was making the crease pattern, I just made this, okay? This. I made a circle and said, here, on this part, I'm going to make the fangs. And why I just made one tip and decided to make the mouth here on this part. And this is important. Let me show the camera again. 4.0 não, ainda nem comecei a pensar no Dragon 4.0 não. Okay, so this part here is really important. The fangs of the darkness dragon is like this, right? I just have a tip, and from this point here, from the tip, I knew that I could make the mouth and the 4 fangs, because I already did memorize one type of fold, and it's like this. Okay, so up to this point I made on the crease pattern, but from this point I did something different, and it's like this. I just had to make this fold, right? And then I opened everything and made an octagon. This octagon is what you see on the crease pattern, on the final part of the crease pattern. Okay? And then I fold the origami back. See? And you have this octagon. And I just folded both sides of the octagon. Doesn't look really good right now, but just folded both sides, close it here, and here I have the mouth of the dragon. So it's basically this, both octagons, one to make the top part of the mouth and the other to make the bottom part of the mouth. And then I use this tip here to make a small fang downwards. Okay, but how did I create this? And this is the hard part. I created because I already knew that I could make this octagon from a tip. All right, so if I have a piece of paper like this, forming a tip, I already know that if I open the way I did, I will have this octagon. And it's important for you to memorize this kind of folds. You know, you have to know the possibilities you have, so you don't have to always think of every detail and put every detail on the crease pattern. Instead of creating every detail, you just think of, like I did, I just think of the mouth part as a tip. I put on the paper and then I make this octagon and make the fangs. Okay, so it is way easier if you know how to transform one crease pattern into another crease pattern. So it's easier for you to create the origami, right? So on the crease pattern, you just make this, and in the final folds, you're going to make this. You have to open the model, and you have to. And another example, I can use a tip like this is, let me see here. A few weeks ago, I was just doodling. You know, I took a piece of paper and decided to try to make claws, 4 claws, starting from this point, and I came up with this idea here. Okay. So I didn't use it on the darkness dragon, but if instead of making all those parallel lines, I wanted to make a claw, want to make the leg and the claws just from a single tip, and I could have used this technique, right? So this claw here started from a piece of paper like this, right? I just started from this point. I made an octagon. Later I'll make a video showing exactly how I did it, but here I folded the octagon back like this, right? And then I just, okay, this part was a little bit hard to fold, okay, but you have this octagon. I just decided to make each claw starting from the middle point of each side. But you can do this the way you want, you know. Just try to doodle with the paper. Try to make folds of small parts. And I've never used this claw for any origami dragon, but for example, in the pocket dragon, you could make 4 claws because you have the same part, the same tip. You have one tip, and you can just divide it in 4 parts and make this. So I just did something like this. I won't do it all on all 4 sides, but the idea the idea is this. I made the octagon, and then I narrowed these 2 sides of the octagon. Okay. If I do the same thing on all 4 sides, I will have 4 claws. I will have this. Cara, eu tô tossindo bastante porque eu tô com refluxo. Eu tomo remédio para refluxo, mas ultimamente tô tossindo bastante mesmo. Mas é só refluxo, então nada demais. See? And that's one idea to create an origami. I've never used this idea. But it is important for you to... several times I say that when I create an origami, I know the result of several folds. And this is the reason. I know already that if I create an origami and make this, I have several possibilities. And one of these possibilities is to dedicate this part of the paper just to make the mouth of a dragon, for example. So I don't have to design all this part every time. I know that I need to make this on the crease pattern, and that's all. The remaining parts I already know how to fold. Okay, so let me read the comments. I'm going to design complicated dragons with box pleating. You can make it with box pleating. I've actually never seen a dragon with box pleating, but if you be careful when making the shaping of the origami, you can make really good designs. The only thing I don't like about box pleating is that it's going to be hard for you to make the wings. You know, the wings are not really box pleated. You need this big triangle and it's easier if you don't use box splitting, or at least if you use box splitting on everything but the wings, it's going to be good. Okay, let me read more. Okay, when I was younger, I used to watch videos and make dragons, whichever kid wanted. Thank you so much for making my childhood. Oh, you're welcome. I'm actually glad to be back and creating more origamis. Vamos ver. Muito boa sacada com a cabeça, muito inteligente. Então, a sacada que eu tive para fazer essa parte do origami foi mais porque na hora de pensar, né, como fazer os 4 dentes, eu precisava começar com uma parte reta. É meio difícil de explicar exatamente como se cria o origami. Basicamente você tem que ter várias ideias, um repertório grande de dobras na cabeça, que você sabe de onde partir para onde ir. Né? So what I'm explaining is that if you want to create origami, it's mandatory for you to have a big repertoire of folds, starting from simple folds. Okay, so in this example I used a lot of tips like this, and I know exactly how what options I have with this, starting with this, right? So I made the whole mouth of the dragon starting from this. I can make claws starting from this, and I can have several folds starting from the same thing, and this is easy to put in a crease pattern. You make a circle and say, okay, I have several lines coming out from this point, and that's all. Okay. So today I'm going to end here. This is all the tips I had for today. And I hope you liked this video, because I know it's different and I'm not exactly teaching how to fold an origami, but I think that these tips, these ideas are good for you to improve your origami and start creating new origamis. And I want to see more people creating origamis, and that's why I want to try to pass a little bit of the mindset I have when I'm creating origami, so we can see more origamis, right? O dragão banguela do Saku 858 é feito em box splitting. Eu vou dar uma procurada nesse origami depois. Eu não conhecia não. Banguela quer dizer aquele do como treinar seu dragão, né? How do you make outlines at 22.5 angles? Using plain box splitting, you get random angles with difficult references. How to avoid that? Let me think a little bit. Yeah, with box splitting you end with random angles, but if it's a little bit of theory in this part, but when you make tips on box splitting, you need to okay, when we are not using 45 degrees angle, you need to use Pythagorean triangles. It's hard to explain. For example, 3, 4, 5 triangles, then you won't end with random angles, and it's so theoretical that it's kind of hard to explain. I don't remember other Pythagorean triangles. I did studied this, but I don't know how to explain. I have to prepare something so it's easier to explain. Let me see here. What else? More important part covered in this video regarding complex origami. Yeah, I think it's good, you know. The more complex origamis we have, the more people who knows how to create origami, the better. Eu não sei o nome do autor, só que o canal dele tá como Saco858. Eu vou dar uma procurada. No dragon with box splitting. Two-headed dragon and three-headed dragons. I think it's possible. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's possible if there are origamis like this. I just think that box splitting limits a little bit of the possibilities you have with the folds. Oh, thank you, the crafts. Circle packing. How come all your lines are 22.5, not random angles? Oh, okay. For circle packings, well, you don't need to make random angles. You don't need to. Let me open the program again. Okay, here you don't need to make, for example, if you make a circle here and another circle here, you don't need to make a line from this point to this point. There's no need for that. You can just make, let me just make some lines here first. So okay, so instead of making a line from this point to this point, you can just make like this, right? So only 22.5 degrees here. All these angles are 22.5. And then you do the same thing here on the other circle. So you will have the lines like this. The only lines that will be a little bit different is when you intersect this line with this line. Okay, so you will have to make okay, these two lines are parallel, right? And then okay, you end this line here and you end this line here. And the problem, and this is the part that gets a little bit complicated, you can use only 22.5 degrees angles, but if you don't have a good proportion, like here, it's always, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but when I created this origami, several times you'll have circles that has small gaps between them. So if you have a gap, for example, instead of making this, you have a circle like this, you need to correct these gaps like this, you know, here and here. You see that the lines just intersect outside, and you don't need to make a line here. See, it would be a weird angle from this point to this point, right? But I didn't use it. I just used it 45 degrees here, 22.5 degrees here, and I end up with a junction at this point. So this is the way I find 22.5 degrees. I don't just line the center of each circle. Kurama, Shen Nara Origami. Huh. I will check this origami later. Shen Nara Origami. Okay, by the way, it's 11:55 in India. Okay. About 2 degrees. Yeah, it's very cold. You can't... Your hand is freezing right now. I didn't know that India got so cold. I thought it was a little bit hotter. I don't know why I had this idea. But here in Brazil, it's really... I mean, not in Brazil, but here in São Paulo, it's really rare to be 2 degrees. But, the folder, it is quite hard for me to explain all the theories right now, but I think I hope you could understand more or less how I did create how the way I think when I create origamis. And there are videos from the plant psychologist where he teaches a little bit of what I was trying to explain about the Pythagorean triangles and how to conform all those crease patterns. And he teaches how to use other programs. There are programs that you just make the tree and the program already gives you the crease pattern. I don't like to use this program because I think they always give the same solution. I like to think by myself of other solutions. But that's it. So I hope you guys liked this video, this live today. I am going to finish here. And well, I already said it before, but I'm trying to teach. I tried to pass the idea of how to create origamis and how to shape origamis. I want to see more people shaping the origami the correct way. I mean, not the correct way, but in a better way, because a lot of people are just using normal papers and just folding. And if you apply these techniques, você chegou na... Pô, mas também você tá no curso, num horário você tá no curso, no outro horário você chega quando eu tô saindo. Mas enfim, again, I want to see more people applying these techniques so you can improve the origami, right? And that's it. Thanks a lot, everyone. I am leaving now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to follow me on Instagram. I need more people on Instagram so I have more opinions on how to change my origamis, because I used to post my new origamis there. Okay? So, thanks a lot for watching this video and see you, everyone. Bye bye. Oh, valeu, Henrique. Valeu demais. Tamo junto. E falou pra vocês. Até a próxima.